next week when the Senate takes up the issue of Vermont Yankee, I think there's going to be a motion to send that bill back to committee for more study because some people feel that it's premature to take the vote next week. Are you encouraging senators to support that effort to send the bill back to committee?
I haven't encouraged any particular action, but I've made my views clear. I think it is premature. If I were a legislator, I wouldn't want to make that decision while the Attorney General's investigation is still pending, while the energy internal and external investigations are still pending, before the tritium leak source is found, until we have a sense of restoration of trust between the company and state regulators. I certainly want to have a lot more questions answered and loose ends tied up before I make that decision.
You wait till it is renewed trust? It'll be a long time, right?
Well, I think it has to happen soon, given the fact that the license expires in a little over 2 years. But we need to have a sense of what happened in terms of the misrepresentations before the board and before the audit team, and feel comfortable that they've been resolved.
Have they won back any sense of your trust at this point in terms of their actions they've taken so far?
Well, I think there's a ways to go. I am encouraged that they have agreed to cooperate with the Attorney General's investigation, and they accepted one of my recommendations, which was to waive, at least to some extent, their attorney-client privilege, so that lawyers could talk to the AG about some of these issues. So that's encouraging. But I think we have to wait and see how that turns out.
Another loose end appears to have just come to the fore in recent days, in fact today really. This tip from a plant employee made by Arnie Gunderson from the Department of Public Service, and now from them to the Public Service Board, that there was radionuclides leaking in the same area a couple of years ago before this leak, this current leak was reported. Have you heard about that, or how concerned are you about that? If so, and is that more reason to have a trust policy here?
I hadn't heard that, Dave, but I'm sure the board and department will look into it. Obviously, there are lots of rumors and statements that are made about the plant from time to time. I think what legislators ought to get are facts.
You haven't seen the letter from the Public Service Board?
I guess not.
So do you anticipate in the next week or so before the vote, urging lawmakers, senators to postpone action on this?
I think it's premature, but I think it's important to talk about what this vote means, and in a word, nothing. The current law says that until there's an affirmative decision by the General Assembly to authorize the Public Service Board to go forward, they're not authorized to issue a certificate of public good. The legislature can vote not to allow them to go forward. They can vote every week not to allow them to go forward. And it doesn't change the status quo. It's an expression of sentiment that may be interesting and maybe a sort of bit of showmanship, but it doesn't change the current legal status, which requires an affirmative vote.
But if it means nothing, how does the plant get its license extended without an affirmative vote? So it would seem to mean something.
Well, the law now is the plant cannot go forward, the Public Service Board cannot go forward with issuing the CPG. So the current status is no until the legislature says yes.
If it means nothing and therefore is a nullity, how can it be premature?
That's a very good point, Dave. Well, I said, I'd rather, before casting a vote, well, I guess we're assuming a no vote, and maybe we shouldn't do that.
I think it's safe.
Oh, okay.
No, I understand.
Dave just said the plan is safe.
Safety's not our purview, Dave.
Right.
We're all comments.
I'd want more information before I cast a vote, but there's really no impact on that. Frankly, I heard some senator say that he had assurance from the NRC that this vote would be respected. I talked with the chairman of the NRC yesterday, and that's not what he told me.
What did he tell you?
He said that he would look at whatever action the state takes and determine how to respond as appropriate.
leaning toward
Did you say anything more than that?
No. It was quite restrained in this.
Well, what do you interpret that to mean? I'm confused. What was the message he was sending?
Well, maybe you want to ask him, but it was a very clear message that the NRC would review any action taken by a state legislatively and decide on the appropriate response. That's what he said.
You've expressed concern in the past about the potential for a preemption suit brought by, now, do you expect one from Entergy, even though in the past they've promised not to, or do you think the NRC might be a plaintiff, or do you think somebody like ISO Inland might be a plaintiff, or what's your reading of the situation right now?
I don't know what might happen. I assume any of that action is a couple of years away. That's when the license expires, but I don't know what might happen, or who might sue whom, but I guess if I were predicting, I would bet ultimately there'd be some litigation.